Hey everybody, Bob McManaman back with you after a Cardinal season ended in disaster, way after. But the team now has a new general manager. I'm joined, as always, with colleague Jose Romero, my fellow beat writer extraordinaire. Jose, what do you think of Monti Ossenfort? I like the guy.
Yeah, I mean, he said a lot of the right things today. I think what really stood out for me today was when he talked about ego not being tolerated with
Right.
the Cardinals.
We're going to focus on a completely unified message across the general manager, the head coach, and ownership to what exactly we want to be as a football organization. We're going to look for the right type of players. Ego will not be tolerated in this organization. We are going to look for focused, driven, and people that are willing to put the team first at every step of the way.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to see, even though we were there every day, you and me. It was sometimes hard to see just how much of that maybe there was, that dynamic existed with. Was there a lot of ego? Was there a lot of me first guys around there in that locker room or in the front office or in the coaching staff? But if there was any kind of that element, Monty Ossenfort is there to clean that out. So
Right.
um,
Uh,
that statement alone, I think, really stood out. Like that was
that
something.
was it. That was the one I took away too. And I think Michael Bidwill clarified it when I asked the question. I said, "How much does that correlate to what you had to say to the players at your end of the year meetings with some of the core guys?" Remember, he told us when he announced that he was firing Kliff Kingsbury and that Steve Keim was stepping down and had, in essence, resigned from the organization, that he planned to meet with core players to just get their feelings on what this team was missing, what it lacked, what was the problem. And to their credit, Jose, and Michael answered this on Tuesday, they came clean with him and said ego wasn't the word, the bell buzzword. It was accountability or a lack thereof. And we saw that. We saw that because the Cardinals, were the most penalized team in the league. This after having been that team 2 and 3 years ago under Kingsbury. A lot of guys, he treated them like men. And I think a lot of guys, not all of them and not most of them, but let's say some of them in key positions, let him down. Guys were late to team meetings. We know this. Guys held out in training camp or hold in during training camp because they weren't happy with their contracts. That's a fact also. I think a lot of guys shut it down for business reasons at the end of the year. Not everybody. Some were really hurt. Some played through their injuries, Buda Baker. But a lot of guys didn't. Now, I'm not talking about the devastating injuries. I'm talking about the smaller stuff that
Right.
Buda would have played through. Other guys, J.J. Watt did play through. Kelvin Beachum played through. A lot of guys didn't. And that's what he's talking about right there. I did see that. And that's going to change. Now, I think the head coach is the one that's going to have to put that authority and that foot down on that statement. Who's the next head coach going to be? What direction do you think they go in now?
I tell you, I mean, it's hard because you want to get somebody who will mesh well with Kyler Murray, because
Yeah.
that's the principal guy you have to think about here. Um, and on the flip side of that, who are the hot candidates? The two hot candidates are D'Amico Ryans or two of the hottest ones, D'Amico Ryans and Brian Flores. They're both defensive guys. So do you go out and get a defensive guy? Obviously Sean Payton is still in the mix, but I feel like that might have taken a little bit of a hit because the Cardinals went out and got the general manager first. And who knows, did Sean Payton want more of that sort of GM power?
I think he does. And I think maybe he's still holding out hope for that Chargers job. Maybe it's not going to be the Cowboys now, at least for another week. I'll say this: Vance Joseph is also a candidate, and he's not getting enough run. But guess what? He's the odds-on favorite to win the job right now, ahead of the guys you mentioned. And I love all of them, especially Flores, and I think because of the obvious Patriots connection. But D'Amico Ryans' stock is just soaring as a head coach. He's going to be one. But I don't know what the fans are going to think if it's Vance Joseph. I love the guy. I think you do too.
Yeah.
He's an honest, straight shooting guy. He said the culture, interestingly, in his last press conference on the last game of the week of the season, said the culture is fine. It was the results. It was It was not, what's the word we always heard? We didn't execute. Interesting that he thought the culture was fine. So I don't know if that makes him a prime candidate, because they obviously think there are culture flaws. Moving on, it's interesting to me. Ossenfort said he's not going to really revamp the scouting department so much through personnel, but via ideology. Can you talk about what you thought of what he said about maybe his thoughts on, how to identify players, what kind of players they want, what's most important? You didn't say ego with the check the ego. What else?
Oh, I just want to make one point I want to make here is I sat right next to Quentin Harris today at the press conference, the player personnel director, and Quentin was applauding everything that Monti was saying. Seemed to be in support of the hire, at least on the surface. You don't know what's underneath all that, but seems like the credentials. Monti comes with a lot of quality credentials from where he's been and what he's done, and a guy who probably has a lot of respect around the league. So it looked like, at least from sitting next to Quentin and knowing that he had been a candidate for this job, it looks like the guys that are still here, and who's to say if they're going to remain, but those that are here for now at least seem to be on board with Monti.
I agree. Well, the Cardinals are going to hire a new head coach probably within a week, I would say, a week from now. And after we get a new head coach here, we talk to him and find out who his staff is, I'm going to go take a round trip ticket to Thailand. What are you going to do?
That sounds
I can't afford the one-way trip.
This is the time of year, right, man? Let's do it. Let's go to a beach.
I was going to go with somebody else, but if you want to tag along, All right, that's it from us. We'll talk on the side. All right, maybe.
Sure.
Make sure you read all of our coverage at the Arizona Republic and at azcentral.com.